Folks, Justice Clarence Thomas's financial life has become a topic of interest since his relationships with billionaires were discovered. The folks at ProPublica have been doing a fantastic job with their reporting. They have a new article out. It's called A Delicate Matter. Clarence Thomas's private complaints about money sparked fears he would resign. It is a deep dive into Thomas's financial history, from asking for a salary increase for Supreme Court justices to personal loans. Joshua Kaplan wrote the piece, along with several others with ProPublica. He joins us now from New York City. Joshua, glad to have you here. I mean, all of these stories have been fascinating. The reason I think this one is really fascinating is because you lay out Thomas going to Georgia to give a speech and writing back with a member of Congress where he actually complained about the salary of the Supreme Court justices. And this congressman essentially came back and said, we got to make sure that Clarence is comfy financially so he doesn't resign.
Yeah, no, I mean, these documents we found give a really rare window into how Thomas was thinking about and talking about his finances in this really important period in his tenure. Kind of relatively early, he'd been on the court for about 10 years. And this was when his relationships with these wealthy benefactors were really starting to blossom. And yeah, I mean, that conversation with the congressman you mentioned, so he was flying back on the plane back from a conference. He happened to be sitting next to the congressman, and he told him Congress should give the Supreme Court justices a raise, or else one or more will resign soon, maybe even within a year. And the congressman, left that afraid that Thomas was about to step down.
What is crazy here is, and I don't understand why this is not even a bigger deal, because all of a sudden, let's just be clear. It's not like Clarence Thomas was friends with all of these conservative billionaires before he joined the Supreme Court. Yes, he was conservative. Yes, he served in the administration of President George H.W. Bush. But all of a sudden, now we're buddies. Now we're going to conferences. And now they're picking up travel. And then it becomes, he gets this RV and he's complaining about money. Dude, why didn't you buy a $267,000 RV? It's called living within your means.
Yeah, no, and it's, it's like, I think that's really important to keep in mind that most of these relationships with the gentleman who bought him, these kind of billionaire political donors who bought him private school tuition and private jet flights around the world, luxury vacations, vast majority of these people he met after he became a justice. And it's it's amazing. I mean, some of these gifts were coming from people he met, practically just met, a year before, giving him expensive gifts. And, we've discovered a lot about the gifts themselves this year, but how and why this all happened, there's still a lot we don't know. What led so many people to offer him money and other gifts over the years, and what led him to accept all of that. And that's why I think looking at what he was saying in this period is kind of crucial context.
Right. And again, somebody who he just met just gives him $5,000 to help pay for the private school tuition of his, nephew or great nephew or whatever it was. And then, this donor, like earlier story, we're just going to fix up his mother's house. And you know what? We're just going to buy the house and then you can just go ahead and pay us rent. I don't care. If this was a member of Congress, if this was a governor, if this was a state representative, a state senator, if this was an alderman, a city council, or a county commissioner, or a school board, they would be investigated for corruption. Yet This is the highest court on the land, and it's like, no, we self-govern, and no need to look into us. We can handle it ourselves.
Yeah, it was... I didn't realize this really until we started digging into all of this, but the Supreme Court has, less oversight, less accountability mechanisms, and less rules about things like ethics than really any other part of the federal government. I mean, I don't think most Americans think of Congress as the paragon of ethics, but most of these gifts that Thomas has accepted, even from a friend, a congressman would need explicit, formal pre-approval from an ethics committee. Gifts over $50 are banned for Congresspeople, with some exceptions that have a process around that. But at the Supreme Court, there's basically no rules governing what gifts they can take.
So we have rules for the executive branch. We have rules for the legislative branch, but there are no rules for the judicial branch. I'm sorry, there are rules for the judicial branch for all other federal judges except the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court, I mean, they just implemented the first set of ethics rules, I think last month, for the first time in the history of the country. They did not, however, create an enforcement mechanism for that. So what that actually is going to look like in practice very much remains to be seen.
Wow, that is absolutely crazy. What else in your reporting caused you to go, man, what the hell?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, it was like over the course of this year, I mean, I think the scope of it was amazing. We were talking millions of dollars in value, likely, from a whole range of people, who are massive donors to conservative causes. And then there's also, something it's easy to forget is, relationships with political groups that, we did a story earlier this year about Thomas secretly going to Koch network donor events.
Yes.
These being flown there on a private jet and essentially being a fundraising draw at a dinner for top donors to the Koch network. And he kept that all secret. And we talked to even, lower court federal judges who said, if I did something like this as a less powerful judge, I'd have gotten a letter commencing a disciplinary proceeding. But at the Supreme Court, even with the new vague rules that are in place, as far as it's, even now it seems that if Clarence Thomas thinks that is okay, then it is okay. There's not really anyone looking over any of the justices' shoulders on ethical questions.
Absolutely. Questions from my panel. Joy, you're first.
Hi. So a couple of things. Can you just draw it out for the layperson out here? What exactly do you think happened? Because I know what I think happened. He put the word out and they responded. What do you think happened? How did all of these folks start giving him money all of a sudden?
I mean, it's a excellent and really important question. And, honestly, I mean, I still don't know. There's no, I don't want to act like we've fully cracked the code here. And we're still very much reporting on this. So, I mean, we don't know that Thomas ever went to one of these billionaires and told them this. What we do know now, though, is that right in this period before the gifts really got going, Thomas was privately, and they haven't really become public until now, pushing for ways to make more money on multiple fronts, on multiple occasions. And he was, and whether that's pushing for a higher salary, trying to get a ban lifted that prevented judges from giving paid speeches on the side. And in some of these conversations, he was raising the specter of possibly leaving the court. And there were worries, like the chatter about this was circulating in Congress and in conservative legal circles, that Thomas was dissatisfied with his financial situation. And there was a worry among, we talked to the former Senate Majority Leader, the Republican, top Republican in the Senate at the time. He told us there was a real fear right then about that Thomas or other justices would step down. So is that what motivated someone like Harlan Crow, the Dallas billionaire? I can't say. But it's valuable context, to be sure.
Larry?
You can't say, but we can. We know what happened.
Listen, we can assume, we can speculate. As they say, it's a whole bunch of smoke there. It may not be a raging fire, but it's a damn lot of smoke. Larry, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Roland. First of all, I really enjoyed your reporting and really enjoyed this article and what ProPublica has been doing about, discussing what's happening in the court, particularly with Justice Thomas. Can you talk a little bit about, obviously you guys have been writing these pieces for the last several months, highlighting this kind of essentially kind of a money grab that I would describe. But let's talk about what is what Clarence Thomas doing unique, or have you guys looked at not just current justices, but in the past? Has this been going part of an ongoing pattern that the American public has been missing in terms of justices and their relationship and how they've been funded, trips, et cetera, by wealthy donors?
Yeah, I mean, there's two answers to that question. So first, to just start with what's known, there's no evidence that anyone's ever done this at the scale that Thomas has in terms of, living expenses and the just sheer quantity and luxury of what he has taken. But there are other justices that have taken gifts that I think, some people would really raise questions about. So, Ruth Bader Ginsburg took a trip around Israel paid for by a billionaire. Stephen Breyer, another liberal, took a private jet flight from a wealthy Democratic donor to a wedding in Nantucket. And Breyer and Ginsburg, they both disclosed that, so that's why we know about those gifts. Alito, though, similarly to Thomas, we found at least one example of a pretty extravagant gift he took and kept secret. So he flew to Alaska on the private jet of this billionaire who repeatedly had cases at the Supreme Court that Alito never recused himself from, and they went on this luxury fishing trip together. So that's the first answer. The second answer is, because Thomas didn't disclose any of this, we found it out through a lot of hard work. And it's possible that it's a broader problem than has come into public view yet. We've been reporting actively on all of the justices, and we haven't found anything on this scale yet. And I don't know if we will, but we are very much still looking.
Mustafa.
Well, congratulations to you and the ProPublica family for this excellent reporting and bringing this to light. We should also be equally focused on how do we mitigate these types of things from happening in the future based upon the conversations that you've had with probably numbers of people. What are the suggestions that need to be implemented to make sure this type of behavior does not continue, for whether it is for Clarence Thomas or current Supreme Court justices or future Supreme Court justices?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of ideas happening, floating around right now. I mean, one that I think has a lot of experts in this, a lot of judges think would be really valuable is having some sort of oversight mechanism, because that's something we have for really the rest of the government. Inspectors general who can look into allegations of wrongdoing or potential just systemic problems, or some sort of enforcement body that can actually, make sure that these principles are not just norms, but actually something that people have to abide by. And then there's also stricter rules is something that gets talked about a lot. And again, this is something where not just the Supreme Court, but I mean, the judiciary as a whole is pretty unique in how vague its ethics rules are. So it's the rules for judges are really lofty. It's you have to kind of at all times conduct yourself in a way that will encourage impartial. Oh, Jesus Christ! Sorry about that.
Just keep talking. Don't worry about it.
So you have to at all times conduct yourself in a way that will encourage the public's faith in the integrity of the Supreme Court. and you can't have even the appearance of impropriety. And with the lower courts, there's an enforcement mechanism. So if you go afoul of that, you can be disciplined. But most other parts of government have actual rules, like you can't take a gift from someone you just met that's extremely expensive. And so things like gift bans, or at least heavy gift regulations, are something that could be implemented.
Oh, absolutely. All right, Joshua, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Keep up the reporting. We'll be looking forward to more of it.